You can't have a church etiquette video series without including a section on dress code. Oh, baby, and this is a hotly debated topic. But let me share with you this. The church is a place that sinners should be able to find the Lord. They should be able to come into the house of God, and if they turn their hearts over to the Lord, they should find peace and rest and joy, and most of all, the Father. So in one sense, we have to consider the church likened to an emergency room. And as far as I remember, for those that are coming to an emergency room to use it, there is no dress code, except for maybe don't be naked. But even that probably doesn't fit, because if somebody was robbed and beaten and had all their clothes torn off, the emergency room would take them in, and the emergency room might even cut off all their clothes to accept them, to get the blood off of them, to know what they were looking at. So first of all, when we think of church as an emergency room with open arms, we should be willing to let just about any manner of dress enter into our facilities. Now, that being stated, I said just about any. We'll go to the next idea and the concept of sensuality. Sensuality has no place in the church. Sensuality is of the world. It is fleshly. But this is something that actually has to be taught to people. Those that have grown up since the age of 2 dressing sensual and watching TV all the time and reading every worldly magazine all the time, they don't know what sensuality is. And to be quite honest, most women are naive as to how depraved men are in the first place. So sensuality obviously doesn't have any place in the church, but it needs to be addressed carefully. But just so that we're focused on this idea of church etiquette, sensuality doesn't have a place in the church. Now, what about presentation-wise? I would say this. Because Jesus seemed to have church everywhere he went, I don't know that we have to have a dress-up code for church, though some would debate that off some Old Testament scriptures of dressing in their best, coming before the Lord as the priest and that we are the priest. I can understand that. But I think at minimum, a minimum standard is that we have to be presentable, that we need to be decent looking. We should actually care a bit about ourselves. Now, let's say we don't, then we have to leave the door open again for the emergency room concept. But as maturing and growing Christians, we need to present ourselves as decent, and I think that's pretty standard across the board. Now, one last thing that does need to be mentioned is, what about ostentatiousness or showiness or prideful dressing? This is one reason I'm kind of against the Old Testament high priest concept of dress your best, is because of our sinful competitive nature and because of the consumerist culture we live in. People tend to compete with their dress codes, or they tend to dress for the acceptance of everybody. And I would prefer to take it back to the layman meetings, like Jesus meeting with somebody on Monday night. He would be teaching in a house very easily on a Monday night or a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday, and they weren't concerned with dress code, but they would have been concerned with decent presentation. So there is no place in the church for showiness, ostentatiousness, or pride, and we just need to be mindful of these things. So come to church with a decent pair of clothes on, but focus on worshiping the Lord and loving your brothers and sisters in Christ.